The UK's coastline, shaped by centuries of naval history, is haunted by the restless spirits of the past. From Scotland's misty shores to the foggy docks of the south, stories of love, loss, and war continue to echo through time. 1. Chatham Dockyard. Chatham Dockyard, once the heart of the Royal Navy, is one of the UK's most haunted locations. Among its many ghost stories, one of the most chilling involves a phantom sailor. Seen standing at the water's edge, staring out into the night, he waits for a ship that never returns. Some say he was a young sailor who died during a sea trial of HMS Victory, while others believe he perished in battle. His body never recovered. What's more unsettling is the sound of his voice. Low, guttural commands echoing over the water in the dead of night, shouting orders to an unseen crew. Those who dare stay late report hearing the faint sound of boots marching on the dock, followed by the rattle of chains and distant cannon fire. The ghostly presence seems tied to HMS Victory, built right here at Chatham. The dockyard itself is filled with cold spots, moving shadows, and the constant feeling of being watched. Some even claim to have seen figures in naval uniforms vanish into thin air. Chatham Dockyard holds more than just old ships. It holds the restless spirits of sailors, still waiting for a ship that never comes. And perhaps most haunting of all, on quiet nights, when the fog rolls in thick over the water, you can still hear his voice, faint and desperate, as if he's still pleading for the ship that will never return. 2. Port of Aberdeen, the ghost ship of the North Sea. In the bustling port of Aberdeen, nestled in the far northeast of Scotland, the spirits of sailors who never made it home are said to haunt the docks. Known for its long history with fishing, oil and shipping, Aberdeen has seen its fair share of tragedies, none more mysterious than the tale of a ghost ship that occasionally appears in the mist off the coast. The ship, shrouded in fog, is said to drift silently through the harbour, its tattered sails barely visible in the early morning light. No one knows its name or where it comes from, but the ghostly vessel seems to appear during storms, often with the faint sound of voices carried on the wind. Some say it's the souls of those lost at sea in Aberdeen's treacherous waters, their bodies never recovered and their spirits bound to the ship they once sailed. But the ghost ship isn't the only eerie phenomenon at the port. Local fishermen often speak of seeing shadows darting across the water at night, their movements too fast to be explained. And in the quietest moments, you might hear the soft sound of footsteps behind you, only to turn and find no one there. It's a place where the boundary between the living and the dead seems to blur, as if the past refuses to let go of the present. 3. Port of Whitby, Dracula's Phantom Crew. The small historic town of Whitby, on the northeastern coast of England, has long been associated with dark folklore, none more famous than the tale of Dracula. Bram Stoker's iconic novel, set in this very town, tells the story of a vampire who arrives by ship at the Whitby harbour, but the legend goes deeper than fiction. The town and its eerie port have been home to more than one ghostly tale, stories of the supernatural, both terrifying and tragic. Perhaps the most famous legend involves the appearance of the ghostly phantom crew of the Demeter. The crew, who tragically met their end during their fateful voyage from Transylvania, are said to appear as shadowy figures on the water, rowing a ghost ship that vanishes into the mist as quickly as it appears. Local fishermen have claimed to see them, standing at the helm with blank, lifeless faces, eyes empty of humanity. Their ship, the Demeter, was said to have carried Dracula's coffin, and its curse is said to linger over the harbour, bringing with it a sense of impending doom. But the ghostly crew isn't the only thing that haunts Whitby. The town's graveyard, overlooking the harbour, is said to be a place where the dead stir at night. Visitors have reported hearing the sounds of chains dragging across the stone paths, and some have claimed to see figures moving among the gravestones, their forms distorted and ethereal. The town's dark, foggy nights seem to play tricks on the mind, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. 4. Port of Grimsby, the haunting of the forgotten souls. Grimsby, once a thriving port in England's fishing industry, is no stranger to tales of haunted docks and ghostly presences. Over the years, the town has seen its fair share of tragedy. Shipwrecks, lost sailors, and countless workers who toiled in the cold, unforgiving sea. And it is these souls, lost to the deep, that are said to haunt the port of Grimsby to this day. One particularly chilling tale comes from a group of workers who once labored in the now abandoned fish markets and warehouses. Many of them worked long hours in the dead of night, packing fish for shipment to distant lands. It was during one of these late-night shifts that they began hearing strange noises, footsteps echoing down the empty hallways, whispers in the dark, and the distant sound of chains being dragged across the floor. They never saw anyone, but the feeling of being watched became unbearable. Some say that the restless spirits of those who died in the cold, watery depths of the North Sea still linger in the docks. Others claim that the ghostly figures of old fishermen can be seen standing by the water, their eyes staring blankly at the horizon, waiting for a ship that will never come. No one knows for sure, but there's a palpable sense of unease that hangs in the air at Grimsby's docks, a reminder that the past and the dead are never far behind. 5. Port of Felixstowe, the silent watchers of the waterfront. Felixstowe is one of the busiest ports in the UK, handling millions of containers each year. But beneath the hum of modern industry, there lies an unsettling history, one of ghostly apparitions and mysterious figures that have been seen wandering the port at night. In the quiet hours before dawn, workers at the port have reported seeing figures standing at the water's edge, staring out into the distance, as if waiting for something or someone. These figures are often described as wearing old-fashioned clothing, as if they had stepped out of another time. Some believe they are the spirits of long-dead sailors who met their end at sea or in the treacherous waters surrounding Felixstowe. But it's not just the figures at the dock that are unsettling. Those who work late into the night sometimes report hearing the sound of footsteps behind them, only to turn around and find no one there. Others have claimed to feel an icy chill or experience a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread. The modern port, with its massive cranes and containers, may seem far removed from the ghosts of the past, but in the stillness of the night, the past is never truly gone. 6. Port of Dover, the ghosts of Dover Harbour. At the port of Dover, where the mighty English Channel crashes against the shores of England, the sea holds more than just water. It holds the secrets of lost souls. While Dover Castle may stand tall over the harbour, it's the fog-covered docks and dark waters below that whisper the most haunting stories. Stories of sailors who never made it home, of a tragic past that it was long ago, during a fierce storm, that a French merchant ship was torn apart just off the coast. The violent waves swallowed every soul aboard, their cries lost to the wind. Despite attempts to recover the wreck, no trace of the ship or its passengers was ever found. The spirits of the unquiet, foggy nights. Some say you can see shadowy figures wandering the docks, figures that fade into nothing when you approach, as if they were never there. Visitors have reported a sudden chill, a sense of being watched, with a most unsettling part. Sometimes, just as the mist rolls in thick over the water, the mournful sound of a ship's bell tolls from the depths of the channel, a ghostly reminder of a voyage that end. Do these souls still walk the docks, forever waiting for a ship that will never return? Or is it the next time you find yourself at Dover, stand by the water, close your eyes, and listen? You might just hear a voice from the past, calling out, still searching. 7. Portsmouth International Port. The Lost Sailor's Call. Portsmouth International Port, a bustling hub on England's southern coast, has a tragic legend tied to its waters. The ghost of a lost sailor is said to haunt the docks, his spirit forever tethered to the sea he never returned from. The sailor's story dates back to a stormy night many years ago, when a merchant ship was caught in a violent tempest as it sailed back to Portsmouth. The ship sank in the channel, and the sailor, a young man who had just joined the crew, was among those lost. Since then, his ghost has been spotted near the docks, staring out at the water, his figure vanishing into the fog as soon as anyone approaches. Occasionally, workers report hearing faint footsteps on the empty piers and the soft sound of a sailor calling out to his lost crew. Despite the busy port, the eerie presence of the sailor reminds those who linger after dark that some spirits are never at peace, forever waiting for the ship that will never return. Some say, if you listen carefully, you can still hear his voice carried on the wind, calling to the sea that claimed him. 8. Port of Harwich. The apparition of the shipwrecked sailor. Harwich, a port town on the Essex coast, has seen its fair share of shipwrecks, and with those wrecks came the stories of souls lost to the sea. Among the most famous of these is the tale of a shipwrecked sailor whose spirit is said to wander the harbour. Local legend tells of a sailor who, after a disastrous storm, was the sole survivor of a wreck. However, when he reached the shore of Harwich, he collapsed from exhaustion and died on the beach. His body was never found, but his spirit is said to return each night, pacing the harbour, desperately searching for his comrades who did not survive. Witnesses have reported seeing his ghostly figure, drenched in seawater, wandering the docks at twilight. His face is said to be distorted with grief, and his mournful cries can be heard in the wind. It is said that if you're near the pier at night, you may hear the sailor's voice calling out to the sea, as if waiting for a ship that will never return. Harwich's quiet streets and desolate docks seem to hold on to this sorrowful tale, a constant reminder of the lives lost to the unforgiving sea. 9. Port of Hull. The Cry of the Drowned. The Port of Hull, one of England's busiest ports, has long been associated with stories of tragedy and loss. With a history dating back centuries, Hull has witnessed countless shipwrecks, but one haunting tale stands out above the rest. This is the story of the drowned children, whose spirits are said to haunt the port, their cries carried on the night breeze. Many years ago, a ship carrying a group of children, orphans and young apprentices, was caught in a vicious storm off the coast. The ship was torn apart by the waves, and all aboard perished. Over the years, several workers at the port have reported hearing the soft cry of children at night, sometimes near the docks, other times in the streets leading up to the harbour. The sound is described as a low, mournful wail, echoing through the fog like the voices of those who never made it to safety. Locals believe the children's souls are trapped, unable to find peace. They are drawn to the water, where they met their tragic end. Some say that if you listen closely, you can hear the faint sound of footsteps and laughter, only to turn around and find nothing there, just the empty, cold docks of Hull. 10. Port of Liverpool. The vanishing sailor of the pier. Liverpool, a bustling port city with a rich maritime history, has witnessed its fair share of tragedies, many of which are said to have left behind restless spirits. One particularly chilling tale involves a vanishing sailor who has been seen near the pierhead, often walking along the edge of the water at night. Witnesses describe the sailor as wearing an old naval uniform, his face shadowed by the brim of his hat. He's often seen staring out at the river, as though waiting for a ship that never arrives. But the most unsettling part of the story is that this sailor is never seen twice in the same place. Those who have approached him report that he disappears into the fog as soon as they draw near, vanishing without a trace. Some believe he is the ghost of a sailor who perished during one of the great naval disasters of Liverpool's past, perhaps during World War II, when many ships were lost. Others say his spirit is tied to the waves themselves, lost to the sea and forever searching for a way home. 11. Port of Falmouth. The Wailing Widow. Falmouth, a coastal town in Cornwall, is known for its serene beauty and its rich maritime history. Yet behind the peaceful waves and soft sands, there lies a haunting tale of a wailing widow whose ghostly presence still lingers around the docks. The legend tells of a woman whose husband, a fisherman, was lost at sea during a violent storm. Every evening, the widow would stand on the docks, gazing out over the waves, waiting for the return of her beloved. But despite the passing days, her husband never returned. Grief-stricken, she spent countless nights at the shore, crying for the loss of her love. Eventually, her heartbroken soul could no endure endure the pain, and she died by the very waters she had watched for so long. To this day, her restless spirit is said to haunt the docks, still waiting for the return of her husband. The wailing widow's ghost is most often seen at night, a figure in white, standing at the water's edge, her face obscured by the mist. Witnesses who have encountered her speak of a profound sadness in her eyes, a longing that's tangible in the air. As the wind howls, her cries can still be heard, echoing through the harbor, calling out to the sea for the man she loved and lost. Fishermen and locals claim to feel an eerie chill when passing the docks on stormy nights, as if something unseen is watching them. Those brave enough to walk near the water after dark have reported hearing her cries so soft at first that they could be mistaken for the wind, but when they turn, no one is there. It is as if the widow's sorrow has become part of the sea, forever bound to the waves. 12. Port of Scarborough. The ghost of the fisherman's wife. Scarborough, a picturesque seaside town on the North Yorkshire coast, has long been associated with tales of tragedy, particularly those involving the sea. Among the most enduring of these is the tale of the fisherman's wife, whose ghost is said to haunt the town's harbour. According to the legend, the wife of a local fisherman waited day after day at the docks for her husband's return, despite the worsening weather. She had been warned that the storm was coming, but her love for her husband kept her there, watching and waiting. But as the storm grew fiercer, the ship on which her husband sailed was lost to the sea. The widow, heartbroken, refused to believe that her husband was gone. She continued to visit the harbor each day, staring out at the horizon, hoping for a sign that he would come back. Days turned to weeks, and weeks into months, until the pain overwhelmed her, and she passed away in despair. Her ghost is said to still roam the harbor, appearing on stormy nights, searching for the ship that will never return. Locals claim that on the worst of nights, when the wind howls and the waves crash violently, they can hear her soft cries carried by the wind. Some even claim to see her apparition, a woman in a long, flowing dress, standing by the water's edge, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. It is said that anyone who dares to approach her will feel a cold chill, as if the air itself is mourning her lost love. And if you listen closely enough, you might hear her whispering a name long forgotten by time, but never by the sea. 13. Port of Blyth, the spectre of the drowned sailor. Blyth, a town in Northumberland, is a place marked by the harsh realities of seafaring life, where many sailors met untimely ends. Among its most notorious legends is that of the drowned sailor, a young man who perished in a terrible accident at sea, his body lost to the waves. The story goes that the sailor was aboard a ship that capsized during a storm, but his body was never recovered. His spirit, however, is said to haunt the Blyth docks to this day, forever searching for a way home. The ghost of the sailor is often spotted near the water's edge at night, his figure cloaked in mist, wandering aimlessly along the quay. Witnesses have described him as a disheveled, wet figure, his clothes clinging to him as if he had just emerged from the sea. There is an intense sadness in his eyes, as if he knows he can never return to the world of the living. One chilling aspect of this tale is the sound of the sailor's footsteps. Though the docks may be empty, those who have ventured out after dark often hear the sound of boots tapping against the stone or the creak of a ship's rigging. Odd sounds for a quiet, deserted night. The sailor's presence is most strongly felt when the weather turns cold and damp, and a sense of foreboding hangs in the air. Some claim to hear his voice, a soft call carried by the wind, though no one is ever there to answer. It's as if he's waiting for the ship that will never return, and no matter how many years pass, his search for peace continues. 14. Port of Penzance, the phantom ship of St. Michael's Mount. Penzance, a beautiful town in Cornwall, is home to one of the most eerie maritime legends of the British Isles. According to the locals, a phantom ship can occasionally be seen off the coast of St. Michael's Mount, especially on stormy nights when the fog rolls in thick and fast. The ship, a ghostly vessel, is said to appear out of nowhere, drifting silently across the waters, its crew unseen, but ever present. Some believe it is the lost ship of an ancient disaster, the SS Argo, which sank in the waters near Penzance many years ago. The ghostly apparition of the ship is most often seen during particularly treacherous storms, when the waves are high and the wind howls relentlessly. Sailors and fishermen who have encountered the ship describe it as a dark silhouette, with sails that seem to be made of shadows, a vessel that floats silently across the waves, despite the fierce winds. Those who have dared to approach it claim that the ship's ghostly crew can be heard calling to one another in a strange, unintelligible language. Some who have witnessed the phantom ship report an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the vessel is somehow not of this world, and a sense that something bad is about to happen. The ship is said to vanish as suddenly as it appears, fading into the mist, leaving nothing behind but the uneasy feeling that the past is never truly gone. 15. London Gateway Port, the ghost of the dockworker. London Gateway Port, one of the busiest ports in the UK, has a dark tale hidden beneath its modern facade. The ghost of a dockworker, tragically killed during the port's construction, is said to haunt the area. He was crushed by shipping containers in a tragic accident, his life taken in an instant, leaving his co-workers in shock. Though his body was removed, his spirit is said to remain, forever tied to the port where he perished. Late at night, workers report hearing footsteps echoing through empty halls and machinery moving when no one is around. Some claim to see a shadowy figure in old work clothes, standing by the cranes, silently watching the ships come and go. His sad, hollow eyes seem to be searching for something lost, perhaps the work he never finished. Oddly, some workers have said his presence seems to protect them, guiding them away from accidents, as if his spirit is trying to prevent others from meeting the same tragic end. His ghostly form never speaks, but his eerie, quiet presence leaves a chilling feeling of both sadness and protection in the air. These haunted ports, steeped in mystery, continue to captivate those brave enough to explore their ghostly shadows. What about you? Know any haunted places? Share in the comments. If you enjoyed these eerie tales, like, share, and subscribe to Creepy Experience for more chilling stories. Stay curious, but stay safe.